Hey, this is Jennifer and Megan. We are two sisters from South Carolina on a mission to discover more about our British grandmother's life in London by reading, researching, and sharing her love letters she wrote during World War II. If you're looking for an interesting, unique perspective on life, love, and London during World War II, then you've found the right place. We will take you through each letter and bring them to life as we have recently traveled to some of the exact places mentioned in these letters. Think of this as a historic love story come to life. So grab your favorite beverage and blanket and prepare to dive in with us. This is the All My Love Lucy podcast. Hey, and welcome back to the All My Love Lucy podcast. This is episode number 7. And again, you have only Jennifer today. Hopefully, Megan's going to be back with us next week. And I will be so glad because I don't like being alone. So hopefully she will be back here, back to normal next week. And as always, I want to start off by saying thank you for all your love and support. We have been overwhelmed by all the support and encouragement, and we really hope y'all are enjoying this podcast as much as we are enjoying doing the podcast. And we also want to mention, if you're a first-time listener, go back and start at episode number 1 so you don't miss any of the information that we've shared so far, because like we said before, this is more like a series podcast, so it's better to start at the beginning of this. And don't forget, we will have an uninterrupted reading of the letter at the end, as always, so stick around for that. And we'll start with letter number 7. And this is dated July 2nd, 1944. My darling Jimmie, I couldn't believe my eyes when I saw your letter yesterday afternoon. 2 in 1 week. What a lucky girl. Now, as we talked in detail in last week, we now have this wonderful map, and I'm going to show it again. I'm shaking the computer. Wonderful map here in this book, a detailed map and timeline of everything Jimmie was doing in this book called Key to Command by Michael Godbout. And as you see, I got the Bronze Medal Award sticker that he sent to me. Excellent book. Even if you don't have family or know anyone that was part of the 50th Signal Battalion, I highly recommend this book if you're at all interested in World War II information, D-Day, all the events that surrounded that. This book is excellent. He interviews so many veterans, and the stories are just awesome. I can't speak highly enough about this book. I know it's very personal that I feel this way, but also if you're just interested in that historical part of the war and everything, this is still an excellent book. So I got mine off of Amazon. I'm not getting any kind of paid promotion to tell y'all about this. I got mine off of Amazon and Key to Command, and I think you can get it maybe at Barnes & Noble too. Just Google it. Key to Command by Michael Godbout. And that's Godbout. So, again, I highly recommend that. I can't say it enough. But it's just been an awesome connection, and I've been talking back and forth with him. He's a great guy, and I think he spent around 20 years researching for this book and visiting over there and kind of following in the footsteps of where the 50th Signal Battalion went, and it's just a phenomenal book. Now, as you may have seen last week, I had edited part of episode 6 out because of some information that in the book and from talking with Michael over email. I had a couple of episodes ago, I had detailed Jimmie's military duties based on what was on his military papers. And as I was reading through this book, I didn't come across the mortar gunners. And that's what Jimmie's military papers said that he did, was a mortar gunner and operated that 60 millimeter mortar. And I never could find anything in there. Well, of course, it's about the Signal Battalion, so they would have had to do with communications. But I still thought maybe somehow that there was a mortar gunners involved, and so I wasn't really sure. So I reached out to Michael and asked him, "Am I missing it, or is it just not in there?" And so he told me that Jimmie was probably trained in it, um, but at the time of him being part of this 50th Signal Battalion, he was part of the letter A company, which were pole line construction companies, part of that communication. So at some point during his time in Europe, he would have been doing this. Not at some time, most of the time during his time in Europe, he would have been doing the pole line construction for the communications part in that signal battalion. He was also part of the 7th Corps, which I'm still learning about, but apparently that has to do with the communications part of helping the 7th Corps. And I'm learning about all that. I don't want to go into great detail because, again, I'm not an expert, a war expert, military expert, none of that. So as I learn more, I'll share it with y'all. But right now, all I know is that when he was during the time of this letter, he was actually part of the communications part in the signal battalion. He was apparently not operating in a 60 millimeter mortar right now. So that's what I took out of the episode last week because I had talked about it again and I took that out. Now, episode 5, I believe, still talks about that, which he did at some point do that, but not at this specific time. So just wanted to clear that part up and let y'all know that. So glad that I met Michael and have been talking to him, and he's helping get all that straight. But also, thanks to this book, Key to Command, I do know that at this particular time of the letter, July 2nd, 1944, Jimmie was still in France. They had just captured the city of Cherbourg and that deep water port that I talked about, and then they were able to begin advancements inland. And a really awesome commendation letter that the book quotes tells how the 50th Signal Battalion played a great part in the victory at Cherbourg as they provided adequate communications, which, of course, were vital. And something else that I found in the book was exactly where they had gone inland to. And I'm going to pop a map up of that, kind of showing where they would have been stationed, where a company where Jimmie was a part of, where they would have been stationed inland when they came inland in France. Something else I found out since the last episode was specifics about the Purple Heart medal that he received. As you remember, I talked about all the medals last time. Well, our cousin Lisa that I talked about last time was talking to her brother Phil, and Lisa and Phil are Jimmie's brother Tom's children. But Phil said that Jimmie was actually wounded 3 times in his hand, across his forehead, and we're unsure of that third one, but he was wounded 3 times. So that's interesting to know. But needless to say, we'll keep discovering more and more about all of this as we go, and of course, we'll definitely share with y'all as we come across these awesome discoveries. So Lucy goes on to say in the letter, I sent your ring by registered post on Friday evening, and I hope you will soon receive it and think of me every time you look at it, just as I do. I'm glad you heard from your mother, and I shall look forward to a lot receiving a letter from her. I hope you've not praised me too highly because, darling, I have a lot of faults, but never forget that I shall always be loyal and true to you because I love you. So I hope you will always make allowances for any shortcomings you may discover in my makeup as time goes on. And I thought that that's sweet that apparently Jimmie's mother is going to write to Lucy, and she's nervous. Apparently she's nervous here about how how his mother's going to think of her. And then she goes on to talk about how, Lord knows we all have faults. But we showed you last time the envelope that their ring was sent in, the registered envelope. She goes on to say it's a very gloomy Sunday, and now it has started to rain. much like today. Today's gloomy and rainy. But I looked up the weather for the state because, as I mentioned before, if she says something or mentions something, it's worth researching. And so I looked up the weather for the state, and it said just that it was a dreary day in London. And while it wasn't a significant weather event that day, it was almost like a foreshadowing to the events that would happen the very next morning. As we know, London was being showered with these V1 Doodlebug bombs by Hitler. And on the next morning after this letter, on July 3rd, 1944, at 7:47 a.m., one of these V1 bombs exploded at the northwest end of Sloane Court in South London. Now, this was just 4.9 miles away from Lucy's flat, and I'm going to put a map up here and some pictures. But this bombing that happened just 4.9 miles away from Lucy was a significant moment in history. Even though this event was not broadcast in any newspapers at the time due to the wartime censorship, and it's also barely mentioned in the history books, but this bombing decimated the 130th Chemical Processing Company of the U.S. Army, of which at least 66 American servicemen lost their lives, which was the single greatest death toll for American servicemen due to a V1 bombing, and it was the second worst incident in London altogether. Along with the 66 American servicemen, at least 9 civilians lost their lives that day due to this event. She goes on to say, I went to the pictures yesterday afternoon and saw a film, The Bridge of San Luis Rey, which was quite interesting, but darling, I wish the whole time that you could have been with me, and I missed you very much. Now, some of the other movies and films that she mentions, she'll say that they were quite good or that she loved it or things like that. But this one she says was interesting. And so I looked it up. She doesn't say it's great or good here. I looked it up, and this movie, The Bridge of San Luis Rey, it's a 1944 drama set in the year of 1774. And one of the major events in this movie that the movie kind of centers around, there was a 100-year-old bridge that led to a chapel in Peru. And there was this group of 5 people who were trying to cross it to get to the chapel. And the bridge falls while they're all on it, and they all die. Like, it's awful. It's sad. It's terrible. But one of the monks that was there and witnessed it, he starts questioning his faith and questioning God and starts seeking answers from God about why that happened to those people. So I know you want to run out and get this movie and watch it immediately. But like Lucy said, I'm sure it's an interesting movie, but that is sad to say the least. So she goes on to say, I have been wondering whether you would like me to send you the Sunday newspapers. It would be no trouble if you would like them each week. Perhaps you'll let me know if they would interest you. And we'll show some of these later as we get to them, because she, in fact, does start sending him newspaper clippings. And sometimes they're bigger, sometimes they're just little small inserts. But when we get to those, we'll show those. So she goes on to say, well, darling, I cannot think of anything more to write about, so I will close. Please take great care of yourself, my precious sweetheart, and God bless you and keep you safe always. With all my love to you, darling, from your Lucy. Now, as mentioned last week, we have made another amazing connection with family of one of Lucy's best friends, Marion. And Marion was another one of my pen pals. I know we've talked about Muriel. Well, this is Marion. And I'm not exactly sure how they met, but they both kind of had similar occupations. And they were right at the same age. And what triggered us to start looking for Marion's family was that I found 2 letters that were unopened that Marion had sent to Grandma Lucy right around within a few days of Grandma Lucy's death. And they were unopened, so I'm assuming they got to her house probably after she died or right around that time. They kind of got tossed to the side probably, but they were unopened. So that sparked an interest to start searching for her and information about her, maybe some of her family. And so I was able to connect with her great nephew from the London area, and he says he remembers, and Marion called Lucy Gertie. So he says he remembers a Gertie being mentioned. I don't think he ever met her, but and so his other aunts, which would have been Marion's sisters, they remembered her, and they had, I guess they had all hung out together or something like that. But then he started sending me some pictures of Grandma Lucy that none of us had ever seen before, and I have this one. I'm gonna pop it up on the screen for you. This one is the youngest picture that I have found or ever seen of Grandma Lucy. And so again, I feel like we have just found this treasure and hit the lottery, finding and connecting with these people because we've just been getting all this information and all these awesome things. But so he sent me those pictures, a couple of pictures of Grandma Lucy that we'd never seen before. And then he sent me a picture of Marion with our dad, Tim, probably back in the late 60s. I think that's when our dad and Grandma Lucy visited London. And so it was just amazing to get that picture. Our dad was maybe like 20, maybe not even quite 20. I'll have to add it up. But he sent that picture. So it was so amazing to connect with Peter. His name's Peter. And again, we're just so grateful. So I had to tell y'all about that because it was so exciting to connect with Grandma's friend, Marion's family. Everyone we've connected with so far has been so gracious, from our cousins that we discovered, and we'll tell more about that later. But through a DNA test, we connected with Grandma Lucy's brother Alfred's family descendants, and we've connected with them, which has been amazing. They are just great people. That's all the ones that are part of his family. And we're actually able to meet one of them in London this past September. And then, of course, Michael Godbout, the author of this book, he was just giving us just an open book about all of the things Jimmie was doing. Great people. All these people. Peter, that is Marion's great nephew. I can't say enough how awesome this experience has been, and everyone that we've met and come across and communicated with has just been the best, and couldn't have a better experience. So I'm grateful, very grateful for that. Now, our next goal is to find Muriel's relatives, and I have not come across, and I can't remember her last name. So I'm trying to find letters or some kind of documentation or correspondence that has Muriel's last name so we can kind of go from there. But the letters that we do have from her are, I don't know if she wrote in pencil, but they're very faded. So it's hard to read and hard to make out some of the things that she was saying. But I will get there. I'm confident. I'm confident we'll find something. So stay tuned for that. But as we continue on this journey with Lucy, as she details her life and her hardships and her longing while she waits to be reunited with the love of her life, Jimmie, we'll continue on with that and all these discoveries that we're making. So don't miss out on any of the upcoming episodes as we are coming across all this great information. And as always, if you don't want to miss any of our episodes, make sure you subscribe to our channel or follow the pages or whatever you do, whichever platform you prefer to listen on. Just make sure you're subscribing or following so you don't miss any of our upcoming episodes. And we always appreciate the likes and the comments and the reviews. That all helps us. So if you can take a minute to do that for us, we are so grateful for it. And as mentioned last time, we're also now going to be answering emails. So if you want us to answer a question or send us a comment or something, you can do that to send that to allmylovelucy@gmail.com. And if it's okay, you just let us know. We'll read them on the podcast and answer them on the podcast. But we'd love to hear from you. One more thing I want to add here is while I'm kind of ending this, but I know you've seen our post about our merchandise. So I have this new coffee cup. This might have my lipstick on it, but I have this coffee cup and I just love it. I love our coffee cup. I've got a lipstick smudge on there, I think. But All My Love Lucy podcast with Jen and Meg, and it says London love and longing in a time of war. And it's black, and you can't really see the colors real well on there, and then this is also the print that's on our t-shirts. I have one on right now, a white one. You can see, I don't know if y'all noticed this. And then we have the black. It's black, just like the coffee mug. It's like the coffee mug, but we have the t-shirts. And then we also have stickers. So for your laptop or your car or whatever you do with stickers, if you're a sticker person. So I will post the link to that. It's currently in my Etsy shop that I have. We don't have just an Etsy shop for the podcast, but you can go on this Lulu Loves It and that Etsy shop. You can type in the search All My Love and it'll pull up if you don't see it right away. So again, we wanted to say thank you for hanging out with me today. Hopefully, again, Megan's going to be back next week, and we'll see you then. But as promised, I'll end with an uninterrupted reading of this letter. So until next time, enjoy. July 2nd, 1944. My darling Jimmie, I couldn't believe my eyes when I saw your letter yesterday afternoon. 2 in 1 week. What a lucky girl. I sent your ring by registered post on Friday evening, and I hope you will soon receive it and think of me every time you look at it, just as I do. I am glad you have heard from your mother, and I shall look forward a lot to receiving a letter from her. I hope you have not praised me too highly because, darling, I have a lot of faults. But never forget that I shall always be loyal and true to you because I love you. So I hope you will always make allowances for any shortcomings you may discover in my makeup as time goes on. It is a very gloomy Sunday, and now it has started to rain. I went to the pictures yesterday afternoon and saw a film, The Bridge of San Luis Rey, which was quite interesting, but darling, I wished all the time that you could have been with me, and I missed you very much. I have been wondering whether you would like me to send you the Sunday newspapers. It would be no trouble if you would like them each week. Perhaps you will let me know if they would interest you. Well, darling, I cannot think of anything more to write about, so I will close. Please take great care of yourself, my precious sweetheart. And God bless you and keep you safe always. With all my love to you, darling, from your Lucy. If you are hearing this message, you've listened to the entire episode, and for that, we want to thank you from the bottom of our hearts. We truly hope you enjoyed this episode, and we hope you'll return for the next episode of the All My Love Lucy podcast.